Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. My name is Patience and I film videos to help international students or intending international students to navigate their way or their life in Canada. If you're someone that wants to learn more about those kind of videos, consider subscribing to this channel and joining this family. So if you're someone that has been planning to come to Canada or you have the hopes and the dreams to study in Canada, you probably would have been following the changes that have been happening with immigration. So basically, the Canadian government are trying to basically put some things in place to ensure that the number of immigrants that are currently in Canada or that would enter Canada, they're drastically reduced, right? So they have projected that there will be lots of cuts, to the number of temporary residents or permanent residents that will be coming into Canada. And even those in Canada right now, there are many things that are put in place basically to kind of reduce the number of immigrants that in the country generally, which is understandable because there are many things that are happening in Canada. There's housing crisis, the cost of living has skyrocketed. There's a very big financial strain on the economy. It's affecting everybody, both the Canadians and the immigrants. So those changes are very drastic. It might seem like a very drastic change or very strict change, but understandably so, those things are put in place for those reasons. So recently, the Canadian government have announced a 10% reduction or even more. That means that there's going to be lots of like strict regulations with the visa process, the immigration process, and that means that there will be lots of visa denials. And basically, it's kind of like a competition, right, to kind of come to Canada these days. So Canada immigration system has become kind of tough, I would say. So you definitely want to have your application very strong and very good and make everything such that they would not have any way or any cause to reject you. Even though yes, it's hard to get to Canada, why can't you be one of those few people that would get to Canada, right? So basically in this video, I'll point out those areas to look out for to prevent study visa denials and ways that you can make your study permit stand out so that you're not rejected. So if you're interested in such video, please keep watching. Now, the first thing to look out for when you're applying for your study permit, or the first thing that you need to make sure is very, very good, is your financial proof. That's your proof of financial support, like your proof of funds, basically. Actually, one of the first things that the immigration officer looks out for in your application is your proof of funds because they want to see that you're basically able to live in Canada by yourself or you're able to fund yourself in Canada. And this is not just about savings. It's not about just having a big lump of money or big sum of money in your account. It's about basically having an amount that you can actually account for or you can explain. And then, it will make sense that that amount is able to keep you in Canada, right? Now, I have a video on my channel where I talked about the documents you need to come to Canada. So I will link that video somewhere. I talked in detail about the amount you need to show, how to, basically show the proof of funds and who can sponsor you and all of that. But I'll talk about it briefly in this video. So I'll show on the screen right now the amount that is on the Canadian government site, the IRCC website, that you need to show. So as you can see on the screen right now, you can see where it says one, right? And that means that's the number of applicants. So basically, if it's just one person coming to Canada or applying to come to Canada, that amount that is there when you see one is the amount that you need to show when you're coming to Canada as your proof of fund, right? And this amount will basically cover your living expense and your tuition fee for the most part, right? For 1 year. So basically, that's what they want to see. They want to see that you're able to fund yourself, right? Now, this part is where people actually have problems because they think that they just need to show like this amount and that's it. No, there's this thing where they do where it's like you call somebody to send you money, maybe a family member or a friend or someone just sends you money in lump sum, right? So that they can meet up to the savings. Maybe you don't have the complete amount in your account and then you just call someone to send you the money. Sometimes those things are not good. If those things were flying before, right now, because of how things are, very strict, they might not fly again, right? So if you can avoid it, like, having lump sum in your account, please avoid it. But if you cannot avoid it, where someone actually have to give you that kind of money, then you have to explain it very, very well in your statement of purpose letter, right? Because it just looks as if you're just asking someone to give you the money just because you want to travel. And then once you get the visa, you return the money back. It's kind of obvious. The visa officers, they kind of know these things, right? So for you to basically not look like you're being fraudulent, first of all, avoid getting lump sum a few weeks before your visa application or your study permit application, right? Because they can see it, right? Because you need to submit around, I think, 4 months bank statement, right? The bank statement must be a recent bank statement, right? If someone just sends you money like a month ago before you submit your application, like it's just there, they will see them like, okay, what's money for? Obviously, it's for your visa and it's basically to make your savings kind of like big, right? So if it's possible, if they can send you every single month, maybe for a year, that means you have to plan ahead, right? Or you can actually print out their own statement of account. That's something that people don't know. You don't have to show only your own statement of account, right? Even though yes, that's like the best thing or that's easier to do. But if it's someone like your family members, like your parents or your spouse or your uncle, your auntie, right? You can basically print out their statement of account and show the money in their own account, right? So you don't have to have like this $20,000 or whatever amount you're supposed to show in one bank statement. That's not really necessary, right? What you need to do is that basically show the amount that they say you should show, right? Even though it might be like three or four different accounts, because actually people don't always have like all their money in one account. Even for them, right? They would have like four or five bank accounts, right? And then that's what they need to print out to show that amount, right? So that makes sense. But what you need to do is to basically explain that very well. That part is very important. In your statement of purpose, right? There's a part where you need to explain that the proof of fund, the financial support, and all of that. That is where you want to explain in detail what every single bank statement you're submitting means, how much is there, what you plan to use it when you come to Canada, all of those things. When the visa officer sees all of those things, they will know that this person already has a plan. And again, even if you have scholarship, right? You might have a scholarship, you might have funding from your supervisor or something, or scholarship generally, you still need to be able to show that you have money, like your own money, to be able to fund yourself, right? So please, this is very important, right? That amount that I showed on the screen, right, for one applicant, I think it's $20,635, right? That is the amount that you need to show, right, for your bank statement. If you have a dependent, maybe your wife or your husband or a child, like if you're two, then the money will increase. If you have somebody else again, the money will increase, right? So basically, depending on how many people you want to apply for when you're coming, right, your proof of fund should have the exact amount that they've recommended, right? Because again, this is the part where people actually get rejected. Once they look at that and see that this person is not able to financially support themselves, they do not go to the application. You know, your medical exam might be strong, your admission letter is there, everything is there completed. But if your proof of fund is not really showing that you're able to afford living in Canada for 1 year, you know, living expense and the tuition fee, they wouldn't go through your application. There's no point, right? So that part needs to be very, very strong. Now, the next area to look out for is your statement of purpose or your letter of explanation. All of these things mean the same thing, basically. Now, this statement of purpose or SOP is a letter that you need to write to the visa officer, basically addressing it to the visa officer or immigration office, telling them your intent to study in Canada. So this is the part where you want to convince the visa officer of your intention to study in Canada, right? They don't know you from anywhere. They don't actually know you. They're not seeing you. The application is basically telling them who you are, right? So this is where you need to show your ability to convince them that you genuinely want to study in Canada, not because you want to leave your country, or that your family members pursued you from your house. You know, those things might be the case, but you don't want it to seem as if you're leaving your country or you're running from your country, right? This is where you want to show them that you're actually genuinely interested in studying in Canada for the sake of studying in Canada, not because of something else. Now, in this letter is where you explain why you chose the program you chose, right? Why you applied to the school you applied to, and how that aligns to your long-term goals. And I have a video on my channel where I talked about how I wrote my SOP. I gave you examples on basically how to write it, and then the paragraphs, what everything should kind of have. So I have that video on my channel. I'll link it somewhere again in this video. Go and watch that video. It will greatly help you. So this SOP also is where you want to show the visa officer strong reasons why you return to your home country after graduation. Again, in this letter, I explained what home tie mean or family ties mean. Basically mean that you want to show them that you're not leaving your country permanently, that you actually want to still go back to your country, even though that might not be the case. But you actually don't want to show that, of course, in the first instance. A way that you can show family ties by mentioning your family back at home. You can talk about your future job opportunities. You can talk about business plans as well. You know, those kind of things that you maybe plan to go back to Nigeria or to your country to, you know, go and, you know, do like a job there or something. And you can talk about business plans as well. You have a plan to start a business in your country. These are ways that you can show family ties. You might have landed properties back at home. You might have a house. You know, you might have things that you can't just leave there. You have to actually go back to those things, right? So you have to kind of bring those things forward very strongly. So, like I said, they're trying to reduce the number of immigrants in their country, in Canada right now. So if they see any whim or they see any slight probability that you're actually running away, You're the kind of, you're not going back to, or you don't show that you're going back to where you're coming from, they probably deny the person, right? So make sure that you show a very strong family tie, and then show them strongly the genuine intention that you want to study in Canada, why you want to study in Canada, your plans, your hopes, and every single thing, what that will do to your future plan, your future career, how that will help you. Studying here is not about just, leaving your country, it's about actually making yourself better, and then it's going to help you actually achieve this and better your country. That kind of thing. Again, watch my video so that I don't waste time on this video. But that SOP as well, it's another thing that the visa officer looks at. Again, like I said, they do not know you. Your letter is what convinces them. If it's poorly written, of course they wouldn't bother about it. Your proof of fund might be good. You might have all the money in the world, right? But if your SOP does not make sense to tie that money to anything, or to explain why you have that kind of money, or to basically show that the money you have, you're actually going to use it to do something and do something and do that, and it's not explaining why you actually want to study. Other things might be so good, but if the SOP is not actually making sense and connecting every single thing, you probably be denied, or the person will be denied. So the SOP is another thing to look out for to avoid visa denial. Now, another thing to look out for is admission to recognized institutions. Now, make sure you're applying to recognized DLI, that's designated learning institutions. Make sure they're recognized by the government of Canada. There are many DLIs, or there are many universities that are not recognized by the government of Canada right now, and mostly it has to do with private colleges, right? Now, some private colleges now, I mean, before it's very easy to basically say you want to do a 1 year program or a diploma program in a private college, and then once you're done, you can apply for PGWP, that's the postgraduate work permit. Then you can work in Canada, and then you can kind of stay in Canada and all of that. That was a bit easier then, but right now, because of how things are, there are some colleges that you can apply to. You wouldn't be able to get PGWP. Once you're done, you're done. That's it. You have to go back because those colleges, they are not recognized anymore, I would say, by the government of Canada. And then you cannot get the PGWP to work in Canada after you're done from those colleges. So basically, when you're applying to universities or colleges or institutions, make sure they're recognized by the government of Canada. They are under the DLIs that are, approved. And then once you're done, you can actually apply for the PGWP, from those colleges. Very important. Obviously, if they see that the university is not recognized by the government of Canada, that's a way that they can deny you, because they're like, okay, obviously this is not recognized. Why are you applying to this university here, right? So always double check that your school is on the list of the DLI that's recognized by the Canadian government. Another area to look out for is when you're applying maybe for spousal work permit. Part of the new rule that the Canadian government has implemented is that the spouse of those applying for the undergraduate program or degrees would not have open work permits, I believe. So only those applying for a master's and a PhD and some professional degrees would have the ability or the chance to apply for open work permit. And even those doing a master's, the master's must be more than 16 months. So this is the due rule that they have right now. Now, if you're applying for a study permit and you have your spouse, right, and you want the spouse to come and join you here, the spouse will likely apply for a work permit. You need to make sure that you are following the rule. So, for example, if you're applying for an undergraduate program, maybe study permit, right, your spouse cannot have an open work permit. Now, if you apply for your spouse for an open work permit and you link your applications together, right, you apply for a study permit, your spouse is applying for an open work permit, but you are doing an undergraduate program, that's a chance for denial because your spouse cannot get an open work permit from the new rule that they've kind of implemented, right? So you need to look out for that and make sure that you're actually doing what they say you should do. Only those that are applying for a master's of more than 16 months or those in a PhD program can actually get their spouse open work permit. So this is another thing that can cause denial. Make sure you're following the rule. Now, I don't know if closed work permit now might be the one that you want to apply for. I'm not sure what an undergraduate person would apply for in that case, like a dependent of that person, right? So in this case, my advice is that instead of both of you applying at the same time, if it's possible, let one person come first. So let the student come first, I would say, and then you guys can apply and the person can come and join you here. I would say maybe that's a way instead of pairing the application together, and also look into permanent residency as well. Instead of coming as a work permit, just let the spouse begin to apply for the permanent residency from the country. So because that's a pathway, right? So basically, make sure your program qualifies you to bring your family members or your spouse for the spousal work permit before you put in the application. If it doesn't permit and you put in the application, together, that might give you a problem. That might be a chance that you'll be rejected, right? So take note of that. Now, the next point is, of course, very important. It's basically looking at the accuracy of your documents. Now, document error is one of the most common reasons for visa denials, actually. People just rush the applications, and there are many, many errors in the applications. Something that you could have avoided, that would then end up being the reason why they denied. So make sure your documents are accurate. So basically, verify everything, right? Make sure your letter of acceptance is genuine. Make sure it is valid. I talked about something in my last video about, again, the documents you need to apply for a study permit. I talked about LOA. Make sure your school approves the LOA. Again, it's your responsibility to make sure that your LOA is verified by the school. If it's not verified by the school within the deadline the RST has, they will deny you. Make sure that your letter of acceptance is valid, verified by the school. Make sure it has the school letterhead, signed, dated by the school. Make sure your financial document matches your study plan, right? Like I said, make sure your study plan, like the plan from your SOP, and your proof of fund, the financial documents, make sure they align. Very important. Because missing or incomplete information can sink your application, right? So make sure everything is in place. All of the documents that I've mentioned in my previous videos, go and watch those videos. Make sure they're in place so that there's no reason, right? It's possible to have your application so perfect that there's no reason why the visa officer can deny you. Like they look left, they look right, they look up and down. There's no reason why they cannot give you the application. It's possible that you make it so perfect. So all of these videos I've been making for the past few days, or that I have in my channel, basically to help you have that perfect application. Now, another thing to look out for, this one can vary, is a language proficiency exam. Basically the IELTS, TOEFL, those kind of exams, English tests or French tests as well. That's for those that need French, right? Those exams can be a reason why people can be denied because there's a cutoff mark, there's a mark that you kind of have to have, right? So basically, some countries will require that you submit an English test. Some programs even will require that you submit an English test, and then the higher the score, the more chance that your application will be kind of like better, right? So basically, practice with mock exams and make sure that you meet or exceed the minimum requirements if your program requires that you write an English test. Now, the next point might not be about documents you're submitting. So I'll say tailor your program choice to meet the labor market needs right now. So right now, Canada is prioritizing some programs over other programs, right? Programs like the healthcare, the STEM, that's this, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, skilled workers, trades, those kind of programs are the programs that Canada government is kind of like prioritizing right now. They need more of those, people, right? So tailor your application or tailor your study permit, your program of choice to be around those kind of places because it will strengthen your application. I'm not saying that people that are not in these fields will not be given visa. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that they will be prioritized. Like I said, there's a number, right? So the first people that they will consider, those people that they want, right? They will prioritize those people first because they would think that most of the people that are coming here would still want to stay here and work for the Canadian government. So if your degree is going to be around healthcare, is around, science, they would probably be, they will consider those people, right? They kind of have a lot of like business people. So they probably will not give those people first priority. Again, I'm not saying that you should not apply if you have this kind of degree. So I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying if you can't tailor your application to these kind of preferred programs. I have a video on my channel where I talked about the top 10 in demand program in Canada right now. And again, I think there is a link that the Canadian government brought out to talk about the programs that they actually want to have in Canada, right? And I'll put a link down below so you can go and click on it and check and see those programs that I know are in demand right now. So the video I talked about, I made that video before this link from Canadian government, came out, right? So those things might be different, right? For that video, you'll still see some programs that are very important, right? So, but most importantly, check the link I talked about, right? If you want to see if the program you're applying to, I think to apply to is in demand right now, click on that link, go and check it, do a search, and then you see if it's not there, then probably don't think about applying for such program. So very important. So tailor your application or your program of choice to fit the labor market needs of Canada right now. Another issue that people kind of have is medical and security clearance issue. Now this one, you can avoid any issue from here very easily, right? Many denials stem from security concerns and not being able to access medical records of people. So make sure that you go and complete your medical exams and you go and get your police clearance, and you should declare any issues you might have. If you have any issue with your medicals or with police clearance, make sure you disclose it, right? So that they don't find out these things by themselves, and then of course it looks like you're lying, right? If it's something that you can explain your SOP. Maybe there was something that happened with police, or I don't know, something. Basically, be open to it and explain it, right? These are reasons why people are denied, because it looks like they are kind of lying, or they're kind of trying to hide some things, because I think they do background checks sometimes, right? When you're filling out the form, there are many questions they ask about medicals and about, security and stuff like that. And most times people just click on no, and thank God that we can click on no. For some people, they might have issues with their health. They might actually have to declare some things, or with security concerns, police. Maybe they've had issue with police in the past and stuff like that. In such a case, just declare those things and explain those things in your SOP, so that you avoid any concerns in the future, right? So these are ways, or these are why people can actually be denied. So make sure you complete your medical clearance and your police clearance, just to avoid any issues with the visa officer. Another reason why people can be denied is when they have unexplained travel gaps or inconsistent study history or work history. You know, those things can be a problem, because then it's like, okay, what are you trying to hide? So these things can lead to scrutiny from the visa officer, where they begin to now look at and begin to try to point out things that might not even be a problem, but because you didn't explain them well, they might look like a problem, right? So avoid unexplained travel gaps or study gaps or inconsistent study history or work history. Those things are not good. So have a clear, well documented timeline, right, of everything that you've achieved, right? Because this strengthens your application, right? I mean, in your application, you have a part where you kind of like talk about your history, your education history, the year you graduated, your work history and stuff like that, right? So in those parts, right, if there are times where you were not working or studying and you were just maybe at home or something, explain those parts, right? Don't leave them blank. Explain them. Because if you leave them unexplained and you leave it to the visa officer to begin to figure out what you might be doing there, they might lead to visa denials, right? Okay, so lastly, what I would say is that just have a backup plan, honestly. I mean, Canada is a good place to study, right? Everyone wants to come to Canada, right? But the truth is that not everybody will come to Canada. That's just the truth, right? So I'll just say, just have a backup plan. There are many alternative countries that you can look into studying, right? It doesn't have to be Canada. I have a video on my channel talking about the countries that you can look into if you're struggling to get into Canada. I mean, the truth is that people are still denied even after having the best application, right? Just because they're trying to cut down on the number of people. Sometimes the application might be so strong, but denial is still there, right? So just check out for alternative countries. Have a backup plan. You can even do both of them at the same time. You can be applying to Canada and at the back as well, applying to other countries as well. So I mean, if Canada comes, then you don't have to go to the other country, and then if Canada doesn't work out, then you can go to the other country. You get it? So basically have a backup plan, I would say. Explore other countries as well. There are many countries that have beautiful, beautiful opportunities for international students. Those countries have less competition for study permits because they don't have housing issues and stuff like that. They have like postgraduate work visa. Once you're done, you can stay back, you can work, you can start a life there. So there are many countries, like I mentioned. Go and watch my video. Basically just look into that. All right, that's the end of this video. So the key is to present yourself as the ideal candidate. You're showing yourself as the person that has the best application out of thousands or even millions of application, right? And I hope that this video has helped you. If it has helped you, please give it a thumbs up. Like the video, subscribe, and then share it to others that might need it. And of course, please support my channel, right? I know you are watching it and I know it has helped you. So please subscribe so I can keep making more content like this. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video.